On the show today, we talked to Dr. Matt Poepsel, and he shares his leadership journey from the military into the corporate world and the mistakes he's made, the challenges he's had to face, and the shifts that had to happen. And now he is considered what we call the Godfather of Talent Optimization. And I really want you to hear all the amazing nuggets that he had to share with us on his journey to understanding people in organizations, from his military background all the way through to becoming vice president of one of the biggest assessment software companies right now on the planet. So stay tuned from Dr. Matt Poepsel. Welcome to the Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast. Our mission for the show is to support leaders who are climbing that ladder of success with warnings, practical tips, and techniques from leadership experts to highlight not just what it takes to be a leader in this age, but in the process, build your confidence to show up more powerfully in your role. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, founder and CEO of Audacious Concepts, Inc., a boutique consulting firm providing audacious solutions to nagging and persistent people issues clogging the revenue pipeline of your organization. From optimizing talent to reducing conflict and improving communication, our brain science, people data tools, and expert coaching help you find the elegant solution to get the job done with more ease and less stress. Now, let's join in on the conversation. Well, hello. Welcome to this episode of Leading with Audacious Confidence. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, and today's guest is Matt Poepsel. And let me tell you who Matt is and why he's here today. So Matt Poepsel, Ph.D., Dr. Matt, or Matty P as we call him, is a leadership expert and the godfather of talent optimization. He serves as the vice president of professional services at the Predictive Index. Matt has led product and consulting teams in the rapidly growing Boston area software companies for more than 20 years. He holds a Ph.D. in psychology with a concentration in leadership and coaching. He served as a cryptographic linguist in the U.S. Marine Corps. Ooh, need to know about that. And he's an Ironman triathlon finisher. My goodness, like I wouldn't even imagine to be an Ironman, Iron Woman, but congratulations to you. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
I know, I was on your podcast, so quid pro quo.
Absolutely. We had a great time.
We sure did. And I interviewed your boss for the first season of this podcast. So how is he as a boss?
How's Mike as a boss? I think he's a tremendously accomplished person. He's really built some really successful businesses. And one of the things that most impressed me about Mike is that when he and his business partner, Daniel, acquired Predictive Index, it's because they had used it at some of their previous companies and really appreciated its power and made a play to acquire it and take it to the next level. And boy, have they. Yes.
So I really enjoyed that interview with Mike Zani. So if you're listening, go back to the first season and check out my interview with Mike Zani. He's the CEO of the Predictive Index. So let's dive into your journey. First of all, cryptographic linguist in the U.S. Marine Corps. What is that?
Yeah, so essentially a cryptographic linguist is part of the intelligence community. So I was trained in how to speak Arabic at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, where they send service members to go and learn a variety of different languages. I was assigned Arabic. And I went on to San Angelo, Texas, where Goodfellow Air Force Base is located. And we learned all about code breaking and these types of things before I reached what's known as my fleet assignment at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And at the time I did deployments to Somalia, to Haiti, to Bosnia. And it was really just a cryptographic linguist means that you spend a lot of time listening to radio signals and doing translations and trying to it could be the local news, could be other types of communication. And it was a great experience. I really enjoyed joining and serving my country, of course, but then I also enjoyed getting out and taking what I had learned toward my civilian life.
Well, thank you for your service.
Of course.
So how did your years in the Marine Corps translate to civilian life now that, when you came out and you started to get into leadership roles?
Yeah, I like to think that it gave me what's almost like an unfair advantage, but also an unfair disadvantage. And the unfair advantage came from the fact that military people have had an experience that sort of makes them they tend to be very dependable, reliable. We learned a tremendous amount of information about how to operate efficiently and how to develop camaraderie and these sorts of things. And I say that when my first day of onboarding equivalent in the Marine Corps, unlike in the civilian world, I was given two things. One was a freshly shaved head, and the second was a book about leadership principles. So even from your very first day, they're indoctrinating you into becoming a leader. Because in the military, what I came to learn later is you can't just go to another branch of the service and hire a colonel or a general. You have to develop from within. So I thought, as a military person, that this is just how adults experience life. They just train on leadership and how to be excellent at everything. And when I got to my first civilian job, I'm like, okay, I want to continue my leadership journey. And they're like, yeah, no, that's on you. That's on you. And you're
That's
like,
on you.
Oh, interesting. So I would say that the disadvantage that it gave me is that in the military, it's a very specific environment. And what I was trained in the Marines was that the priorities for leaders, mission accomplishment, troop welfare, in that order. So you're going to get the job done. That's a given. And if you can help people be happy along the way, that's nice. When I got to the civilian world, I came to realize that doesn't quite work so well. And so now I ended up having to learn how to modify that to say mission accomplishment, troop welfare in equal measure, right? In balance. And I think that what I see now is that putting people first, as long as we've got good context for the mission itself, that's a much better way to lead in the civilian world than what I had experienced before.
In the military, right? That makes sense. So I read on your profile online about you. You said, I'm a struggling manager turned capable leader and talent optimization expert. Talk to me about the struggling manager. Now you're in the civilian life, you're reading leadership books, you're trying to become a better leader. What was the struggle?
Yeah, 100%. I went to graduate school. I got my master's of information systems and my MBA at the same time. And that was my effort to translate and make myself relevant, I would say, in the business world. So I felt like coming out of the military was great, but I had no real commercial experience, if you will. So when I started to continue my education, it was all the technical aspects of work, right? All about information and supply chains and organizational structures and design and all these things. Very hard technical aspects of business. And that's very common, I find, in leaders, is that we spend a lot of time studying markets and trends and economics and all these things. But I neglected to really think about the people side very much. So when my first early leadership assignments, I tried really hard to get the technical parts right. How do we define the work? How do we think about, like, if you think about classic Peter Drucker, what is the job of a leader? Define the direction, marshal the resources, define the success metrics, manage the metrics. Great. Where's the people part? Right. So with all due respect to Peter Drucker. So what I came to find out is that I had the balance wrong. So the struggling part was I was having, poor relationships with the people who I worked with and who worked for me. And the real height of it came when I had to let somebody go who I myself had made the decision to hire. And so I was in my office and I delivered this terrible news to her. And it wasn't her fault, but she cried and I just went home thinking, where did I go wrong? And that's when it really dawned on me that I had spent so much time trying to learn the technical parts of business, but I had neglected the people part. So that became my new mission, is to get the people part right.
Wow. How many managers and leaders out there are struggling with that same thing? Like you're trying to do your job. You're trying to get all the pieces of the job together, right? And you're just expecting everyone else to do their job. It's like, just do your job and everything will be fine. But it doesn't work that way in real life.
It doesn't. And I find what there is, Alicia, is that there's this artificial separation between, well, are we working on the business or are we working on our people. And so it's like, if we do a one-on-one or something, or we do some developmental exercise, then it's almost like, okay, let's go do the kumbaya thing. And you're like, well, hold on a second. Like, these things are naturally infused, but we operate on either one or the other at a time. And I find this is what prevents business and HR leaders from really working closely together. The business is really focused on those technical aspects we've been talking about. And sometimes HR comes in and says, well, we have to really make sure that the employee engagement and experience is high. We've got to make sure to meet the people side of these needs. And the business becomes distrusting of saying, well, yeah, okay, if we do all that stuff, I'm paying these people, how do I get my business results? And the people side of things starts to become distrusting, meaning the employees of the business, by saying, yeah, you're getting my time and my energies, in exchange for a paycheck, but I'm looking for something more. And so it's like there's this divide between the two that I've worked really hard to try to break down.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that in a second, but you're saying something so important, because then HR struggles with, how do we meet these needs? Okay, we'll throw in a training here, or we'll do a retreat here. So they're trying to piecemeal things to try to bring some kind of, recognition to people. We'll have awards, we'll bring in pizza night and beer on Fridays, or, we'll try to do all these things to try to bring morale up, when it's a day-to-day, we have to integrate it into everyone's daily life, in order for them to really enjoy the process of work. And it's not a piecemeal thing. It's not a one-off thing. It's not a check the box thing.
True. Right? Yeah. And I give credit to HR as well, because I think that the HR professionals I speak with recognize that they have a bit of an identity crisis. And so you see this trend towards, well, I'm an HR business partner. Just really making sure that we understand that we're in the business, we're embedded in the business, or I'm people operations, or the chief people officer, or I'm a talent optimization person. And it's really saying that the term HR is almost a 4-letter word in a lot of companies. And so we can't have that, because the reality is that these are the most highly trained people professionals that we have. And it's people that make our businesses go. And historically, if we're training our leaders on the technical aspects of business, they're incomplete. So we need to foster a much stronger partnership between our people professionals and our line of business professionals, if we're really going to do right by our bottom line, the performance of the company, as well as by our people.
Yes, absolutely. So we touched on talent optimization a few times so far. So what exactly is talent optimization?
Yeah, talent optimization is a relatively new discipline that has emerged. We first started to really codify it, I would say, in 2018. And it was when we had this realization, myself and a bunch of other leaders at Predictive Index in particular, we had thousands of clients, but we were finding that they were struggling to produce the business results they wanted. So we said to ourselves, well, okay, every business leader has some semblance of a plan when they start their financial year, let's say their fiscal year. So let's say it's January 1. And they're like, okay, what's going to accomplish over the next 12 months? Then at the end, on December 31st, they look back, and very rarely does their performance match the aspiration they originally had. And we found that it was because if we skip people steps along the way, it shows up and it causes all kinds of problems. But what are those people steps? And so we developed this framework called talent optimization, and it really codifies the things that every leader at every level must do. 4 things. One is to design winning teams. How do we get the right group of people together, make them cohesive, working towards the common outcome? How do we hire top talent? How do we make sure we attract the right candidates, that we make the right selection decision, we get them onboarded properly? How do we inspire people to greatness? We have employees, we have this privileged relationship with a manager, we have people, peers working with one another. Really important to get that part right. And finally, how do we diagnose people problems that are affecting the business so we can get them fixed? How do we take objective measures so we're not doing just subjective things, and really tie them to the business context? If we get those 4 things right, then all of a sudden, then the business result is going to match the business strategy and the strategic intent. So talent optimization really comes down to 2 things. It's really, how do we optimize the performance and the experience of everybody in the organization? If we violate any of those 4 things, if we skip any steps, we won't have optimal performance, we won't have optimal experience, and then the business and our people suffer as a result.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. So we're talking about building solid teams, hiring the right people, and then I'm trying to go through the whole model. Building the right teams, hiring the right people, inspiring leaders at every level, but not just leaders, but also individuals who are working, how to inspire them. And then we're diagnosing any issues, any situations before they become real problems in your business. So we're taking whatever your goals, your strategies, your vision is. We're looking at the people that we have in the middle of all of that have to execute it, and then looking at our business results. So it's really what's between our strategy and our business results. It all relies on our people. So you need to have very, very solid strategy for your people. And that's what talent optimization does.
It is. And I think you brought up two really important points in that. One is that all people activities take place within the context of the business. It's not as if we do all people stuff on Tuesdays and then on Wednesdays we work on the business. No, it's all intertwined. The other, though, is that I really picked up on what you said, which is that we talk about leaders at every level. And this is one great thing that came out of my military service. Even when I entered the civilian world and I had no direct reports, I was the most junior person around. I still considered myself to be a leader. I could lead myself and I could lead my peers. And I did that. And I rose through the ranks very quickly because that was such an unusual way to act. I already, I wasn't going to allow a title. And later in my world, I became a product manager. And a lot of times product managers don't have direct influence or authority. They don't have reporting relationships with people like software engineers and designers and marketers. So they have to use this indirect influence. They can still lead. So this indirect leadership, I think, really prepared me for this new world of work where it's highly networked, a lot of specialists, sometimes even multiple companies working together on a project to build a new car or do whatever the thing is. So that's that mentality that some people say, oh, I'm not a leader, I'm just an employee.
Right.
No. You're still a leader. You still fit within talent optimization. And when we talk about design winning teams, maybe you're not the team leader, but you're a team player. So what can you do to help your team be better? Right? I'm not part of the hiring process. No, but you're part of the selection process because we want you to interview a person who's going to join your team. How can you ensure that they're a great cultural fit? How can you do? So you always have a role to play, no matter where you are in terms of your title or the things that matter a hell of a lot less.
And you mentioned culture because that's a big buzzword. Everybody's like, oh, we have to have people to fit into the culture, or we have to create a great culture. And talent optimization really helps organizations design the right fit culture for their business. Yes. And it's not about excluding anyone. It's really about understanding everyone, who they are, what they bring to the table, how you can maximize those strengths. And I love what you're talking about as far as even if you don't have direct reports, you're still a leader. And through the Inspire, through Inspire tool, I'm just going to use that word, software tool. It really helps organizations. It helps individuals to understand themselves on a deeper level and what they bring to life every day when they open their eyes. It's like, this is what I'm designed to do every single day. And that really grows confidence. So this is called leading with audacious confidence. That grows your confidence in immeasurable ways.
Yes. I think that a lot of times we think about confidence as really the domain of people who have high levels of dominance and drive. And, they're really happy being out in front and they're the front of the room and all this. That is a type of confidence, of course. However, in your area of specialization, even if you're a more introverted person and you have a deep expertise in, let's say, data security, you can absolutely and deserve to be as confident as you can be when it comes to the things that are exactly within your wheelhouse, that are strengths of yours. Everybody deserves to be confident. And what I find is that confidence comes from two things. One is awareness. You have to be aware of your values and your strengths and your tendencies and all these things, because otherwise it really is, it's too random. You can't tap into that whole, everything you bring to the table. But the second is acceptance. And the reality is not everybody can be comfortable being in the front of the room or leading the charge or doing it. Doesn't mean that you can't be confident, though, in what you are naturally good at and where you're naturally going to have gaps. We all have them. In my example, I'm very comfortable in a world of ideas, in a world of possibilities, being visionary, thinking about the future, making these critical connections very early in a project. And I am rubbish at the details and the follow through and all these things. So I learned over time to surround myself with people that could complement me and help make sure that my big ideas don't just stay there, that they actually manifest. And I'm also, that's kind of one way of looking at it. But I want those people who execute projects and details to be supremely confident in our infrastructure, in our execution, our processes, our procedures. I want them to be like, absolutely, we're going to do this. It's going to work. It's just a different kind of confidence than what I have in a different context.
I love that because it is so true. People, and I had that misnomer many, many years ago. When you look at someone who's out in the forefront as being confident and you being an introvert, not being confident. But when you really understand, which is what the beauty of predictive index is really understanding who you are, how you are wired for success, then you can sit in the confidence of that and stop trying to do and be and something that you're not, or trying to do things that is just outside your wheelhouse. And so much of society tells us who we should be and how we should be. How about understanding who you really are and then leaning into that? And that brings confidence. And then as a leader, or as a manager, as someone who is in charge of people, understanding who your people are on your team, what value they bring, and then you instill confidence in them by really valuing and honoring the gift and the strength that they have, that they bring to the table every day. That will go so far in HR, because that's an everyday thing. That's not a drinks on Friday thing. That's an everyday value that, I'm bringing this to the table every day. I'm happy doing this every day. And as a leader, when you understand that on your team and you let that shine, your people will be so happy to come to work. They'll work harder and those business results will come through over and 100%. Over. Yeah.
It's funny, Alicia, when I think about, like, in my career, you can see my gray whiskers here. I've been around a little while. And in a reflection, I realized is that my career kind of evolved as a leader over a couple of phases. In the first phase, I worked really hard to be well-rounded. So I knew the gifts that I had, like I shared with you a little bit earlier, but I also tried to be reasonably proficient at things like using data and projections. I tried to be reasonably good at being a good team player and invoking employee participation, as well as some of that detailed project execution work. I didn't love it, but I got reasonably good at it. So I tried to make myself well-rounded so I could really have a facility with all parts of a business. But then I realized I'm not going to ever be really good at some of those things. So now, instead of being well-rounded, my next was to lean into my strengths. So in the middle of my career, it was like, okay, you're naturally good at being visionary and all these kinds of things. So how do you do more of that and start to delegate? Because now you're at a director level, a VP level, you can start to delegate some of those things to people who are just always going to be better than you at that. In the later phase of my career, I became a coach and a teacher, and I started to pull those strengths and hold up a mirror, like you're suggesting, to the people on my team. And I stopped working on myself so much, and I started making sure that I was able to draw and lift up those people around me. And that all of a sudden it was a lot less about me working on myself, as opposed to me working on my ability to help unlock the potential of other people and help them become self-optimizers. That was kind of something that I aspired to or grew toward in the third phase of my career. The next phase, well, that's a work in progress. We'll talk about that some other time, perhaps.
I'm telling you, this talent optimization stuff, guys, you got to look into it because it's the easy button. If you're looking to rise in the ranks or even just to have a better team, have better results in your business, really check that out. And just as a side note, I am Talent Optimize certified as well as Predictive Index certified. So you can reach out to me. You like, just a little
Definitely
self plug, since I am talking to the godfather of talent optimization here. I want to ask you one other question, and then I want to jump into some rapid fire fun stuff.
All right, I'm ready.
So, what have I not asked you that you think is important for leaders to understand about talent optimization and really understanding how to connect their strategies and goal to their actual business results?
I think maybe about how to lead in this current environment that we're in. I think we haven't talked so much about what's happened. I think we would be remiss to not acknowledge that we've had a profound shift in a couple of things. In my mind, there's a framework, and I always say that there's a couple of key questions. What's the work to be done, and who's doing the work? And there's also increasingly for me, as I continue to do my research and reflection, there's a third important question, which is who's leading the charge? And that recognizes the fact that leadership is a very privileged thing in organizations and something that's often overlooked. So in terms of the trends, what happened is during the pandemic, it accelerated some trends in the business world that fundamentally changed the work and how it gets done. It accelerated the nature of remote work. It accelerated digital transformation. It overturned business models overnight. And so the work fundamentally changed. The worker changed too. What happened was when we were foisted into this situation, it led us to reprioritize what was important to us. And we started to put our kids to school and put them on Zoom school and things. And it fundamentally changed, it fired off the question for people, why am I doing this when it comes to going to work? And so once it was relatively safe, we said to our workforce, okay, safe, come on back. And the world's workforce said, no, thank you. I'm going to be staying remote. And you're like, what? Okay,
right.
Let's figure this out. So now we have this prolonged change in the worker and sort of what's important to them and their priorities and their values. And I think the last question of who's leading the charge, unfortunately, that hasn't changed yet. I have not seen the next layer of leadership, thought, and methodology that really accommodates the new work and the new worker. And that's currently what I'm doing most of my work and research on, is trying to educate the next generation of leaders how to lead in this new environment. And it's going to be critically important, not only to our business performance, but to ease the challenges and the profound suffering that I see the average worker going through right now. It is a very difficult environment that we're in, and it's not going to change anytime soon. We have to change as leaders.
Yes. And okay, so I'm going to ask another question on top of that, because you mentioned remote work, and we did not touch on all of that during this interview. So thank you for that. How do leaders navigate remote work, and how can they really use talent optimization to help them in this, people coming back to work, remote work, hybrid work environment that we're in?
Yeah, my observation is that the same techniques are necessary. We just do them differently. And by that, I mean this. A lot of times when somebody decides to stay remote, for example, if they're given that flexibility and opportunity based on their job, they make that decision for what I call personal reasons and not personality reasons. So you may have a highly extroverted team member that really enjoys taking their child to kindergarten and walking them to school. And they say, I don't want to sit in 45 minutes of traffic and miss the opportunity to be there for my children when they're at this, unique stage of their life. Well, they're super extroverted. That's who they are. How are they going to get that need met? So even though they're remote for me, I need to go out of my way to create FaceTime through Zoom. I need to call them. I need to do whatever I can to make sure they've got plenty of opportunities to scratch that need they have, that itch of being extroverted and working with and through other people. I don't say, they chose to work remote because they just want to be left alone. No, right. They made a personal choice, not a personality choice. So when you go back to things like designing winning teams, well, one part of that is understanding each team member's strengths and needs. So that's part of what talent optimization says we must do. Well, in the remote context, that doesn't change. It's just the mechanism by which we meet those needs, or that we celebrate and apply those strengths. That part changed. So, stick to the core of what's always mattered, but change and be flexible in the way that you achieve it.
I love that. That is brilliant. Because you're right. People will prejudge certain things and not really take the time to understand the why. Why are they choosing to do this instead of coming back into work? Because of course they want to come back to work. Who wouldn't want to sit in 45 minutes of traffic?
Exactly. Turns out millions of people.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the pandemic has really changed the face of work, and it's changed the face of priorities, and it's changed the face of what people are willing to do and not do anymore. And the leaders have to respond to that. Owners of businesses have to understand how to respond to that. And one of the tools that can help you is talent optimization and talent optimized certified. I don't even know how to say it. Consultant that can help you navigate that whole sea of the changes that have been going through. We've all been going through. So. Thank you so much. This has been rich, and I want to invite you back because there's so much we could talk about. Like I could just do a podcast with you alone. I really can. I know.
I would love to come back. I agree with you. There's so much to talk about. And there's so much power in harnessing the capabilities of our people and meeting their needs as well as meeting the needs of the workplace. It's definitely, I would love to come back and talk more.
Yes, because we didn't even dive into those areas. Like, what are people's needs? What are their behavioral types? What do they really need in order to succeed in the job that they're in? So we'll set aside some time to bring Maddie P back. So are you ready?
I am ready.
You're ready. Okay, we're going to do something here. We're going to do some rapid fire questions, and and he doesn't know what these are. So here we go. First question is, what's the biggest leadership mistake you've ever personally made or was a victim of?
I think one of the biggest leadership mistakes that I made was thinking that it was about me. And so I worked really hard and I was very self-absorbed in terms of trying to make myself a better leader, only to discover that it's really not about me at all. It's about them.
That's big. That's huge. What's the best advice you ever got that you still implement today?
I think that I got a lot of great advice along the way. I think that one of the most technical bits of advice, because I think a lot of leaders are thinking about the technical parts, especially earlier in their careers. And I don't think it's unimportant. I remember some guidance from Peter Drucker, the great management thinker, and he said that the job of a leader is to define the direction, marshal the resources, define the success metrics, manage to the metrics. And I have found that regardless of what level you're in, that's pretty much what shaping the work really does come down to. Now, I would say, where's the people part? But I do believe that that's a really great piece of advice for folks to share that. Yeah.
That's a good starting point. That's a good starting point.
It's a great starting point to understand the technical aspects of your role. I think that the other thing that I would say to complement that, because I think I shared that a little bit earlier, might be something that we sometimes call the platinum rule, which is that it's not just do unto others as you would have it be done to you, but as they would have it for themselves. Like understanding that people do have unique needs and that I can't use my brain to think your thoughts, Alicia.
Right. No,
won't work. So now all of a sudden you have to be like, okay, great. So what might you be experiencing when you come into a meeting and you're short with me? It may have nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. There might be an entire experience you had. You may have just gotten a tough phone call right before you walked into the meeting, but immediately I'm like, oh, what is it? What's happening in our relationship? Why is she upset? I bet it's because
we're all egocentric. We're all thinking about us and everything affects us. And we're not thinking, oh, this person might be going through something right now.
Yeah. So flip the script and let's get onto their side of the table and just ask questions, be curious. So I feel like that's a nice compliment to the Drucker point from earlier. So now I've structured the work, but now I'm getting into the mindset of the worker and taking on their perspective and realizing that they may see things differently than me. And that happens all the time, I find, in organizations.
Wow. Something that reminds me of too is, using the PI software and some of the tools in it, we can identify some blind spots that you may not be aware that you have. And so that is a huge, huge benefit when you can see not just your blind spots, but blind spots on the team and call them out, because awareness is really a powerful, powerful experience, because then you can be at choice and you can choose to change that behavior. You can choose to change your reactions and your responses to things. So
You're not kidding. And the one thing I'll say on that real quick, I know I'm slowing down your rapid fire, but I think one of the things is you could either have a new hire and just work with them for 6 months and try to figure them out and just guess, or you could spend the 6 minutes to take an assessment and just fast forward that whole process and just accelerate that sort of, oh, now I understand what you need from me most. Let me figure out how I can get your needs met in the context of our work together.
Right.
Much better way to go.
Much better way to go. Click the easy button, people.
There we go.
That's the easy button. All right. This one is, if you were a castaway on a deserted island, what 3 things would you hope washed ashore or were airdropped to you that you couldn't live without? And one of them cannot be a cell phone.
No cell phone. That's good. I would appreciate that. I think a good book. I definitely like to read a good book. I think, I need to get better sleep. I'm going to need a comfortable bed. I'm going to be comfortable. I'm sleeping on this desert island, I think. And I think, can I take a person with me? I would take my bride.
Yes, you can.
27 years later,
she could be airdropped.
Yeah, I'll airdrop her in because 27 years in, I'm still infatuated with her. So I'll stick there. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Okay, yeah, there you go. If you were a song, what song would you be?
Ooh. I don't know. It depends on the day. I've never tried to imagine myself as a song. Holy cow. I would be Rock Lobster by the B-52s because it just makes me happy every time that silly song comes on. I love it.
I love the B-52s.
There you go.
And we're of that same generation.
There you go.
And okay, so you can, this last question is, what book are you reading now? Or you can tell me what are your top 3 book suggestions that people must read.
I'm in the process of writing a book, so I feel like at the time, currently I'm reading about 100 books, it seems, and I've really been enjoying the process. If you go upstairs right now and I think about my bookshelf, I just picked up, I'm really excited about Martha Beck's The Way of Integrity, which is really powerful about trying to find wholeness and the structural integrity and bringing our full selves to our work. Dan Pink's got his book about regret, and I feel like that's a powerful one that I'm also reading and enjoying.
And, I have that. That's on my list to read next.
Yeah, I really enjoy Dan Pink's writing, just generally speaking, and I think this is more of a kind of a more human topic than he's always covered such great topics. And and there's another book, No Time to Lose, by the Buddhist nun Pema Chodron, where she does her analysis and commentary on an ancient Sanskrit work from Shantideva, and I just enjoy really thinking about that spiritual side. Those are probably 3 of the books for sure that I'm juggling at the moment. Awesome.
Okay. That's wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading Dan Pink's book on regret. I heard his interview with Brene Brown, and I was like, I got to get that book. I got to. All right. I'm looking forward to when your book drops. So tell everyone how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the easiest. Yes, LinkedIn, just Matt Poepsel, and I'm one of the only Poepsels out there, so easy to find.
And let me tell you,
love to connect.
Follow him on LinkedIn. He has the best posts all the time. I love reading and interacting with his posts.
I appreciate you. Have a good time doing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. And thank you for listening to this episode of Leading with Audacious Confidence. Please share it with others, download it, and enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to step out and lead yourself, your team, and your organization with audacious confidence. Until next time.